back then, all I knew to do back then was use as many mics sort of as I could and get essentially too close, because you don't normally mic a string section. You shouldn't, I don't think, mic a string section real close, but try to get as close as I could with all the string mics, and then make the best of it. And, they're in the mix there, but it's not, you could never use as much as you might want because of the bleed. Again, now that we have clip-on mics where every violinist or viola or cello, every string player can have this mic clipped on their instrument, that's much, much, much better. You can actually get, it's still going to have bleed, but because they're by and large, they're little omnis, kind of like the one over here that I'm using here to speak with you.
Yeah.
But it works much, much better.
And so the impression, the ratio of, string signal to bleed will be, preferable. It'll be more like 90-10 as opposed to, the other way around.
10-90, yeah.
So interesting. I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of our advertising people because they're not all music people, but I'm trying to lap up as much knowledge as possible here. And you were saying that you don't like to mic string sections close. And why is that?
Well, because that's not how they were created to be.
Yeah.
Basically, that it's the sound. Ideally, a string section. If we start and pared down, if we start with an orchestra, the orchestra is 40, 50, 60, 80, 100, however many pieces that should come at you as one thing. It's an orchestra. It is one thing. And so as a result, when I do orchestras, like for film scores, the 80 to 90% of the capture is with 3 omnidirectional microphones about 10 feet approximately over the conductor's head. And if you're in a good room, and that's important, if you're in a good sounding room, that you're going to get a really good representation of the orchestra. Now you have film mics on things like the woodwinds that might not carry as well compared to the brass, which will typically be behind them and will carry just fine, that kind of thing. But that's what you want to do. So if you look at it as a string section, even for a pop record, I always tend to, when I started, I was miking, I think, a little too close all the time. And I had a room mic. And now, because I wasn't recording in as good a recording studios either, because the recording, again, has to have a good sound to it, has to not be too dead, so that the ambience of the room, it gives you something. And it can give, depending on the room, it can give you a lot. And you won't get that if you mic too closely. So today I will start with 2 or 3 mics, and maybe not, depending on what it is, maybe not like an orchestra where I might get 80 or 90%, but I'll get at least 50% usually from those room mics, if you want to call them that, the overall mics.
Yeah, so you said room mics in a kind of disparaging tone there, and I'm guessing that's because really they are the principal mics. They're not just a kind of an ambience if you're recording.
Right.
Yeah. So that on the orchestra, I don't know what you think about this. I've always felt like the arrangement of the orchestra, where the instruments are placed, and of course how the music is written dynamically, you could think of as the original approach to mixing before there was any method of capturing audio. It was actually pre-mixed in the composition.
Correct. Yeah, what I've always said is that the ifs. If you have a good orchestra, if the orchestra is in a good room, if you have well-written and well-orchestrated, especially orchestrated notes on paper, if you have a great guy with a baton that knows how to lead an orchestra, if you're not running from a click, if you have all of those things, those sessions are easier for me than a big rhythm section, because it's taken care of. Everything is taken care of. And one of the things you point out to stand on is in fact, how the instruments interplay with each other, the orchestration of it all. A good orchestrator knows not to have instruments climbing on each other. They stay out of each other's way so that certain frequencies don't build up. If only a lot of record producers could learn that, because a lot of record producers, especially younger ones, will start, with all the mid-range oriented instruments, like, excuse me, like a piano or synth sounds and guitar sounds and everything that are in the same range, and they just start competing with each other. And it makes it much harder to hear everything. If they could learn that orchestrating rhythm sections on pop records or R&B record is very important also.